So Howard Lutnick opined on how people should react if they don't get their Social Security checks, and it was pretty horrifying.
Describe it to people this way. Let's say Social Security didn't send out their checks this month. My mother-in-law, who's 94, she wouldn't call and complain. She just wouldn't. She'd think something got messed up, and she'll get it next month.
Yeah.
A fraudster.
I don't even know what to say.
No, it doesn't dignify or respect. It's so crazy.
This motherfucker
Yes.
has $2 to $4 billion.
Yeah.
Like his mother-in-law ever has to want for anything.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, really? Really? Your mother-in-law with the billionaire son-in-law wouldn't freak out if she didn't get her Social Security check, which probably would not even cover the price of her bedroom slippers.
Right.
Oh, wow.
She would just wait till next month. She'd say, "Oh, I'm sure there was a mix-up. I'll wait till next month." But wait till the next part.
Well, that makes her one of the good people.
Yeah.
It makes her one of the good people. He goes on.
Yeah.
Always makes the loudest noise.
Hold on, we have to back it up. We have to get the full thing.
This month. My mother-in-law, who's 94, she wouldn't call and complain. She just wouldn't. She'd think something got messed up, and she'll get it next month.
Yeah.
A fraudster always makes the loudest noise, screaming, yelling, and complaining.
Wow.
And if all the guys who did PayPal, like Elon knows this by heart, right? Anybody who's been in the payment system and the process system knows the easiest way to find the fraudster is to stop payments and listen.
Yeah.
Because whoever screams is the one stealing.
Yeah.
Because my mother-in-law's not calling. I mean, come on, your mother, 80-year-olds, 90-year-olds, they trust the government. They trust, okay, maybe it got screwed up. Big deal. They're not going to call and scream at someone.
I mean, it does not dignify a response. It is unbelievable. So now seniors who miss their Social Security checks, who call and complain about it, you're comparing them to PayPal scammers and suggesting that there is no legitimate, like, to call and complain that you miss your Social Security check makes you a suspect, that you're a fraud.
Right. Well, this is what I've been saying. It's what I'm calling Tricky Ivan. It's the Tricky Ivan technique. When you have governments that are not providing for people properly, and they tell, oh, yes, Tricky Ivan, he is getting something he should not be getting. He's very tricky. That is why you have no heat in your house. We must find Tricky Ivan and stop him. This is how we do it. We shut off all the heat in everybody's house.
Right.
The one who calls to complain, that's the tricky one.
Yep.
Incredible. First of all, this doesn't even make any sense on the face of it. As somebody who in my youth was a little bit in the criminal world, if you're the fraudster, you're the person who won't call up.
Right, exactly.
Because you don't want to draw attention to yourself.
Right.
The person who calls up is not worried that if they look into your case, they're going to find out that you're actually collecting money from Bulgaria.
Right.
The person who's going to... Old ladies trust the government? They all trust the government? Why? Didn't you guys campaign on the fact that the government can't be trusted? Isn't your whole administration about the fact that the government is terrible and everything has to be gutted? Now, all of a sudden, the good people, when it's convenient, actually trust institutions and the government, and they should trust them? I thought you're doing everything you're doing because they shouldn't.
Exactly. Well, that is another just stunning part of this, because I posted the 24-second clip, and then a couple people said I was taking it out of context, the clip, right? So I went back and I watched it, and that's why we have this 2-minute version. The context, of course, makes it worse. And somebody comes back to me, well, what all they're saying is that if you miss your Social Security check, that you should just be cool and trust the government. And I replied back. I said, so MAGA is super skeptical and super red-pilled on everything else, except when the rich people screw your mother-in-law out of her Social Security check. Then you're supposed to trust the government. Now all of a sudden you trust the government. Trust the government when they're denying you the benefits that you paid into your whole life. But on everything else, God forbid someone should recommend the measles vaccine, right? No, then you're super red pilled about that.
No, no. Look, this is what's
It's pathetic, man. These people are so sad. It really is so sad.
That is where I despair, because you
Yeah.
look at this and it's just, hey, you look at a lot of the conversations that went on around the invention of television, and there were serious conversations about how potentially it was going to be this great instrument for education, and that's where you got all this educational programming from. There was this very utopian vision of what television could mean. But then there were also people who were saying this could be the greatest force for propaganda ever.
Yeah.
It feels like with social media, with the internet, it doesn't feel like we really had that conversation. It feels like we went right from, is this a great time or what, to everyone's lost all their critical thinking skills.
Yeah.
Like they are so brainwashed and propagandized and conditioned to treat all political information as emotional pornography and or rage bait. It's all about rage bait. It's all about directing people's rage at an object. I mean, if you just look at this whole construction where the good people all of a sudden trust the government.
Oh, they suddenly trust the government.
It's very Orwellian. It's very
Yeah.
Orwellian, because you look at the person you had that exchange with. I'm sure, 5 minutes ago, they were screaming about how it's great that they're getting rid of all these people because of how corrupt the government is.
Right. Yeah.
Amazing.
Really amazing.
But someone who's stealing always does. So what happens is we need to get to, so the people who are getting that free money, stealing the money, inappropriately getting the money, have an inside person who's routing the money, they are going to yell and scream. But real America is going to be rewarded, because here's the key.
Benefit of the doubt.
Not one penny should stop going to, we're the richest country on earth.
Yeah.
Here's the way I say it. I said we have a $6.5 trillion budget. We have $4.5 trillion of revenues.
Yeah.
Okay, we lose $2 trillion a year.
Yeah.
We have a $29 trillion GDP, right? Which people don't understand, and which I'll explain a little bit. And we have $36 trillion in debt.
Yeah.
What number didn't I say to a business person? What's our balance sheet worth?
Right.
I say $500 trillion.
Right.
The president says a quadrillion. But at $500 trillion or a quadrillion, 36 trillion, we're rich. We don't have to take one penny from someone who deserves Social Security. Not one penny for someone who deserves Medicaid and Medicare. What we have to do is stop sending money to someone who's not hurt.
Okay. Now, this is really, given the mantra of DOGE, given the mantra of this administration, really given the mantra of Republicans since they passed Social Security in 1935. That is a remarkable thing to say. So why are you shaking the entire federal government upside down right now for loose change?
Right. If we're so rich.
Like, he's essentially saying even the deficit doesn't matter. He's saying, 36 trillion in debt. Our GDP is worth, I can't remember the exact number he said, but it dwarfed that. So he's basically saying we have a great balance sheet. So why are you putting all these people on the breadline? Like, why are you rifling through Social Security and firing people when it's already at a 25-year low in its employees? And partly because of that, it doesn't work very well. It's not very efficient. They pay out, I think it's 1% on administration on the 100% of benefits, which is much lower than any private insurance scheme can do. So
hold on, if I can just make one quick point, because there's a reason I included that in the clip that I tweeted out. When he says there, we're not going to take a penny from people who need it. We can afford to pay the people who need it. This is about rooting out fraud. That's what everybody says. That's right. The defense that everybody makes. Well, no, they're not going to deny. They're not going to deny it to people who need it. Well, no, what they're going to do is redefine who needs it and who doesn't need it.
Exactly.
That's the game.
They're breaking Social Security under the guise of getting rid of fraud that does not really exist on any significant scale. Certainly not on a scale significant to the enormous budget, which he rightly points out we have. Not something that you would notice as more than a rounding error in the federal budget. Not anything that would fix the deficit, that would allow you to cut taxes. Sure, there's fraud. It's infinitesimal.
Exactly.
It's infinitesimal. So, Social Security employees warn of damage from DOGE. This is what he's covering up. And he has to beat his chest about how much they want the people who deserve it to get the money to get away with this.
Right.
To get away with this. So they have all their chuds out there online going, so what if your grandma didn't get her check for 3 months? So what? And they're, you know, she should trust the process.
Right. Trust the government. What, you don't trust the government? You're not a
You
real
don't trust
American?
the government? The Trump administration, led by Elon Musk's crew of cost cutters at the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, has taken its chainsaw to the agency's operations. The agency has announced plans to cut up to 12% of its workforce at a time it's staffing. Oh, it's actually, I said 25. It's at a 50-year low. It has also offered early retirement and other incentives, including payments up to $25,000 to the entire staff. Many current and former Social Security officials fear the cuts could create gaping holes in the agency's infrastructure, destabilizing the program, which keeps millions of people out of poverty and large percentages of retirees rely on for the bulk of their income. And here's from Fortune. DOGE's plan, certainly not lefties over there at Fortune, by the way. DOGE's plans for Social Security are backdoor way to cut payments, experts and former official warn. This is the most serious threat I've ever seen to it. Exactly. This is what Lutnick's trying to butter you up for. Laura Holtzel, a former associate commissioner at the Social Security Administration, by the way, footnote, she took the offer, so she very recently resigned, said that the changes would make it more difficult for some Americans to access their benefits while doing little to target actual fraud. She said the changes amounted to de facto Social Security cut, Trump administration's promise not to touch the popular benefit. Quote, it's creating an environment where the very beneficiaries we're trying to serve are simply not going to be able to access the benefits they've paid for, she said. We have always tried to make it easier for claimants, more efficient for claimants. And the justification that's being put forward for why they are pushing this is the idea that there's a great deal of fraud taking place, she said. Well, the math there just doesn't add up, unquote. According to the SSA's Inspector General, only 0.3% of claims are attributable to fraud.
Wow.
Social Security's payment accuracy rate is over 99%, and the agency has several safeguards in place against improper payments, according to the progressive think tank Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. Now, if you look at what the impact of Social Security is on poverty and what they are risking by messing with it this way, it's not just elderly people. This also covers disability. Children under 18% in poverty, 15.5% with Social Security, that would go to 16.8. Adults 18 to 64, 10.2 would go to 12.6. 65 and over, 10.1 without Social Security would jump to 37.3% living in poverty. Total all ages, 11.4% live in poverty, which we're the richest country in the world. Maybe Lutnick should get on that. 17.9% would be living in poverty without Social Security. Here's a graphic representation. 10% with Social Security of the elderly live in poverty, and that shouldn't be either in the richest country on earth, as Lutnick points out. But without Social Security, it would get much, much worse. And once again, this is Howard Lutnick's fortune, and insiders say this is probably an underestimate. This is the guy that some people who work hard, work for low pay, work 2 jobs, work 3 jobs, this is the guy that a lot of working people are listening to when he decides to opine about Tesla, decides to tell you about how grandma should just grin and bear it when she doesn't get her Social Security check.
It'll come next month.
This is the guy. Now, honestly, I keep saying there are moments like this. I watch that and I say, yeah, man, I can see, like, actually the Chinese were very merciful. Like, they, compared to the Russians, they would take these people and, I guess they had a secular kind of philosophy of redemption, right? Hey, we don't have to take them out behind the shed. We can put them in the fields for a few years until they get their mind right.
Right, re-education.
And re-educate them and reintegrate them into society. Now, look, if you would not take pleasure deep in your heart seeing Howard Lutnick working a soybean field for 10 years,
yeah, right, exactly.
I'm sorry, you're a peasant. You're a peasant. If there's anybody who should be working a soybean field for 10 years, it's Howard Lutnick.
And then 1 year we don't pay him. We say, hey, relax, you'll get it next year.
You'll get it next year. Why? You don't trust the government?
You don't trust the government? This is the thing. It's so foreign to him that seniors rely on that monthly check.
Right. Yep.
Like if my mother-in-law didn't get her disability check, which is Social Security, same thing once you reach over 65 if you were on disability, she wouldn't be able to make it till the next month. She would need someone to take her in. She would need someone to buy her food. Like you are on a fixed income. That is what gets you through the month is that check. And he does not understand that. Come on. I mean, real Americans understand. Sometimes there's a mix up. You get it next month. I mean, it's as out of touch a thing as I've ever heard any political official say. I've heard people say equally out of touch things. I've never heard anything more out of touch than that.
No.
Hey, wait till next month.
No, the man is a pig. Yeah. And those are the kinds of people that Trump is surrounded with.
Yep.
That is why they are just being allowed to rifle through the federal government and destroy programs that working class people rely on because they don't care about those people. And even where they think they do, they're so out of touch. They would say something like that.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, no, the good people, they're not going to complain. Only the fraudsters would complain.
Yeah.
It's insane. That's insane. That's who Trump's people are. You know why? Because he's a whore. That's who paid him. That's who paid him to dance like a monkey for them. And he's certainly doing what they paid him to do.
100%. Absolutely.
Please clap.